Hey, it's the old man here, and we got fresh straw. Had to move around other places in the shade, and didn't seem to work as well. Well, come here, dude. Get over here. They can't see you. Come here. Anyway, she'll show up in a second. It's sunny earlier, and here come the guineas. And I actually have a fence I put up. I had to banish the guineas because they just wouldn't leave Lady alone. And yeah, you okay? Her leg's a lot better, so things are looking good. I wanted to go back to Lame Deer, Montana. So we'll turn our Wayback Machine back to 1973, Lame Deer, Montana. Actually, Busby, Montana. I like Lame Deer sounded better. That was the town next to Busby. So, yeah, we get over there, and Scott's job and Ed were building homes for the Indians on the res, maybe 50 of them, and they were kind of scattered here and there. And this one particular house we saw being built from the foundation up. Scott and them did the drain fields and stuff, and did a good job on that. But the rest of the houses, whoever designed that and okayed that program should have been made to live there with their family for one winter in Montana. Hollow core front doors. We drive to work and watch it built. Pretty soon it's moved into, and pretty soon there's a fist hole in the hollow core front door with 2 hinges. Pretty soon the door's gone, there's a blanket hanging up there, and by the end of the season we were getting ready to leave. The house was abandoned with the windows open and the curtains blowing in the wind. It was just junk. They really got screwed on that deal. But I went to Google Earth and checked it out what it looks like now, and they have the old town of Busby is off to the side, and the new town is down the road, maybe half mile it looked like, and it's got a school, and it's got really nice warm-looking double-wide trailers, probably 8 inches of insulation, I bet, if they did it right, because that place was cold. Oh. I looked at pictures on there on Google Earth, and they showed a sunny, cold day, and man, 20 below, and a hollow core door. That was a really bad plan. So, yeah, and with that. Anyway, so Scott and Ed and me and Randy are all carpooling together, and at the time we were making big money. Well, let's get a rig. Let's get a res rig. And the story we were told back in those days, 40 years ago, that if an Indian bought a car and put money down on it and drove to the res, they could never come and repo it. And also, you could never drive that car off the res. So we bought a 65 Ford, 66 maybe. No title, had a license plate, but the guy told us don't take it off the res or you'll get in trouble. And we actually did, once or twice drove off the res knowing that we might be walking from that point, but you know, kids love to have risks, I guess. Yeah, there was on the east side of the reservation, there was a road that went through just a barbed wire fence, and on one side of the road was this big parking lot for maybe 20 cars, and on the other side of that fence was a little town. There was a cafe and a Indian school and some other stuff, and we would go and park in the parking lot, walk through the gate, not the gate, just walk across down the road a ways to the town and have dinner, lunch, whatever and stuff, and come back, get in our res rig, and head back to the house. And we ran that tires off that car. And Ed, if you see this, sorry about those front tires. Ed gave us some front tires for it, and when the car finally blew up, I think we cut the tires. Just inexperienced kids. So, sorry, Ed. So we got the res rig, and the alternator goes out, and generator, I guess. The nearest parts store was easily 100 miles away, and we're like, I don't know. And talked to our landlord who ran the local gas station, repair shop, and towing yard, and told him what we were doing. He goes, "Well, go down to the car dump. I think I saw a Ford down there." And we're thinking, junkyard? Well, let's go. Where's it at? And he gave us directions. And we get down there, and what it is a flat spot with a long ravine. And they would park cars on top and strip them out, and when they were done, they pushed them over the bank. And sure enough, there was a Ford there with an alternator generator on it, and swapped it out right there. And as we're doing this, somebody goes, "Look at this." Well, here's the cars being stripped, and here's the ravine. Down at the bottom are Model A's, and Model A's, and 1930s, and 1940s, and 1950s, all the way up, just cars. 70 of them, I don't know, a lot of cars. And well, let's check it out. So we got our car put together. We scrambled down there. I'm down at the bottom looking at not a Model A, but a Chevy Model A, whatever that is. And there's a enameled emblem on the dashboard, and I'm like, I'm gonna get that. And I'm reaching in there, and I'm looking up through the cars and the lights, and things are kind of moving. I'm going, if this thing moves, I'm dead. I mean, we're down at the bottom of a ravine with cars that are just happen to be wherever they were, and anything could change. I hastily got the thing off and brought it home, and I still have it actually. But you kids, be careful. You know, you think you're bulletproof. If that thing would have moved, minimum broken arms, could have been dead. That's right, huh, lady? Come here. I don't know if you can see her or not. The way I got my phone set up, I don't see the camera. I hope you can see her. Come here. Yeah, what a sight. 48 Chryslers. I remember a 50 Ford down there, and then I could say all these cars from the 30s that, you know, it's just a ton of them. So another new thing for SeaTac kids. We'd never seen anything like that. It's a lot of fun. So on our days off, for Randy and me, well, Ed too, and Randy and Scott, every once a month we'd get a Saturday off because we worked 6 days a week and 10-hour days. So on our day off, we're driving around. We asked this guy we met in Lame Deer. He worked at the gas station. He was our age, recovering heroin addict from New York City, whose grandpa owned the gas station and said, "Kid, you want to get out of town? Come on home." And so here's this New Yorker. In fact, we called him New York. I don't even know what his name was. Ran the gas pump, the only gas pump in Lame Deer, so he knew everybody. He knew what was going on, and a good guy to know. But so we talked to him when, you know, what are you guys doing? We got the day off, and he goes, I said, what's there to do? And he goes, oh, check out the old road. The old road between Lame Deer and Busby. Okay, we'll check it out. I actually looked it up on Google Earth, and it's still basically there, and there was a store affair halfway, anyway. So we get on the old road, and it's just a one-lane road, basically, through the woods, if you could call it that. We're driving along, we come to an abandoned store of sorts, maybe like even a feed store, because they had a big hoppers on the side and all this stuff. And we get out and we're looking it around, and I look down, and there is wagon wheel tracks all over. And we're thinking to ourselves, this is the old road. I mean, I don't know when wagon wheels went out of style, but I know it was a long time ago, so it truly was the old road. And we drive along some more, and we come to a spot that's like an overlook kind of a thing, and we walk down there, and you've seen pictures of rocks that are like this, and on the top is a flat rock teetering on the top. We found those, and it was just like TV shows, I guess. I mean, we had to jump maybe 4 feet, and it might have been 15 feet across. And I'm instantly nervous, and Ed is nervous, but Scott and Randy were fearless. Those guys, I'll tell you, they walked to the edge of that rock and kind of bounced up and down, come here lady, and said, it's okay. And Ed and I immediately jumped off and said, you guys are crazy. And it was solid, it didn't move or do anything, but man, I was sure was not going to stand up there and test it like that. Yeah, so the old road was, well, we had a blast on that day. And you know, looking back, we had no CB radios, no cell phones, so if it broke, we're walking, and that's it. And we did a few times, but you know, people come by, and it's part of the adventure, I suppose. So we did that. Oh, and Randy and the job that we had, and we had to crush the rock to make a road. And had all this machinery to take care of and stuff. And like I said earlier, worked in the hole. It was just noisy, loud, dusty, the worst job on the place. And after about a couple weeks of that, we got promoted to the gravy job. And that involved, we got the big funnel hoppers, and they would come with fresh loads of dirt and dump it in there. And there was welded rebar 6-8 inches apart, and that way the big rocks would fall off and they could haul them away. And every so often a big rock would get stuck in that grate, and our job was to take a big metal hook and pull it out of the way, and that was it. It was gravy. $7.25 an hour to stand in the nice Montana sun all day. It was heaven for kids. Yeah, look at the view from that. The basket was, I don't know, you could see Wyoming, maybe 100 miles, because we're up on a hill a little bit, and it went down progressively, so you could see forever. And yeah, good job, and I'm up there working in the basket. Dumb kid, inexperienced, and I smashed my finger somehow. The rock hit that hook, and anyway, I'm bleeding, and it's cut pretty good. I still got a good scar there. Hey, shut her down. Hey, Joe. That's the boss. No, Bud was his name. Bud. Hey, Bud, shut her down here. I got an injury. And he comes over and looks at it, and he goes, wrap a rag on there and get your ass back up there. No, I had to be defiant. I said, no, I need to go to the doctor. They wouldn't give me a truck to drive, so I defiantly hitchhiked into town, 100 miles, got stitches, came back home. You know, the guys, how'd you heal up? Oh, it's okay, blah, blah, blah. Next day I'd go to work, and there's a chalkboard next to the boss's shack, old busted up thing they found who knows where. And you had names and what you did. Todd, hole. Yes, sir. Right back to the hole for 2 weeks, maybe a week and a half. And live and learn. Yeah, I never did that again. And Randy, real dry kind of humor, I suppose. Hey, how's your finger doing? On the way to work, as I'm going to the hole and he's going up to the basket. Never really rubbed it in too hard. And I suppose he did, because where I worked was in the shade, and until 10, 11 o'clock, it was cold come August, September. I mean, but up in the basket, here's Randy. Oh, wow, it's kind of hot up here. And I'm looking up at him and, you know, rubbing it in, and that's okay. I deserved it. So a couple weeks go by of working in the hole. Got back up, came in, there was a name on the chalkboard, and that was, you know, basket or whatever they put for the job. So I got back in the gravy train and never complained again, because that's how we finished off that season, is raking rocks out of the grate there, and sometimes they would change us around, but very seldom. We pretty much had the gravy train and spent all of it. I came home broke. I don't know about Randy and Ed and them guys, but I bought a $75 58 Chevy pickup from the landlord and drove that home and started all over again, I guess. But it was a lot of fun. Enjoy your youth. Do stuff. and talk to your friends about it, because I can't anymore. And yeah, I'd love to reminisce about those guys on that rock business jumping up and down, and same with that where the cars were parked and down in the ravine. Scott and Randy, they fearless, and they just climbed around, looked in there, and got trinkets off the cars and stuff like that. Had a lot of fun. They for the other entertainment was south of Busby was a Kirby Saloon, not even a town, just half mile beyond the res gate, if you want to call it that, was the Kirby Saloon. It was a 45-minute drive down a dirt road, which is a paved road now. In fact, going to Google Earth, that whole neighborhood is different. It's just more people living there, and big ranches, I suppose, stuff like that. But it back in the day when we were there, it was the only place close. I mean, Hardin, like I said, was a good 100 miles away, and it wasn't much different, just more taverns and bars. But the Kirby Saloon is still there. I looked it up on Google Earth. In fact, it doesn't look like it changed much at all. And that's where we'd go, not a lot. It was funny, Scott and I kind of hooked up, and Ed and Randy hooked up, just because I guess Scott and Ed were tired of each other. Randy and I had seen enough of each other, so a lot of nights, maybe Ed and Randy would go to Kirby, and Scott and Ed stay home and watch TV or something. And so it went. But that Kirby Saloon, it was just off the res, no drinking on the res, no booze on the res, you're not supposed to. And so there was a pretty wild crowd. And the funny thing was, Randy's dad told us just before we left, you be careful, I heard them Indians are still scalping the white man, especially long-haired white man. And it was a bold statement to wear a ponytail in Montana. They were rednecks, and they care for us, and I probably didn't care for them, but you live and you learn, and you meet people, and you meet rednecks, and they're pretty cool, and they meet us, and they realize we're not just a bunch of flea-infested heathens, and so the story goes. And but we ended up hooking up with the Indians. The cowboys didn't like the Indians, they didn't like the hippies, so we just kind of fit in with the Indians under default. And they good people. I mean, they brought us in like family. If you came over for dinner, nobody even looked twice at you. It was just, come on in, grab a plate, whatever it is, and they did the best they could with what they had. I'll tell you about the jail. We drove to work, and we drove by which was at the time the courthouse Indian place. I don't know what you'd call it. Come here, David. It was a double wide trailer with no skirting, and so anyway, we're driving to work, and this is the truth. We see three men handcuffed together, and the third guy is handcuffed to the trailer hitch of the cop car in the dirt. And it was, I don't know if it was freezing, but it was certainly colder than all get out. And that's how they did it. More than once we saw people handcuffed together and laying in the dirt. I don't know if the jail was full or if that was their detox program or how they worked it, but that's how they did it, and they did it often. I used to ask those guys, because I'd go to the tavern, I'd be drinking coffee, and people always wanted to talk to non-drinkers about maybe their brushes with sobriety or things they've done, blah, 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 and I asked them about drinking too much. And the one guy I talked to who did drink too much, he said it just happens. Sometimes you just get out of hand, but for the most part he thought he had a control over it. The guys would order a beer and he'd buy a fifth and sit there and sip on it. In fact, the first time we saw that, everyone gets a beer, and the bartender drank coffee, so there's always fresh coffee. I'll get a fifth of whatever. And the bartender says, hey, Charlie, you remember what happened last time? He goes, that's cool, I got it under, I'm okay. And gave him a fifth, but that bartender was always there, his store, I guess, big man, 6'6". I've literally seen him grab guys by the scruff of the neck and the seat of their pants and throw their ass through the door out into the cold. And guys pass out in the snow face first and come back in 20 minutes, half hour later, and act like nothing happened, brush their face off and sit down and carry the conversation. Just the way it was back then. And I met a lot of sober ones, so I'm not saying anything about who does what or any of that stuff. We all got our stuff. And yeah, they did the best they could. And, who knows, maybe they got AA out there now. I couldn't even guess. But at the time, that's the way it was at the Kirby Saloon. And a couple other last things here is, back in those days, there was no energy drinks. I was just thinking about this. You either had coffee or Pepsi, Coke, and that was it. And the rumor is that the truck stops had the best coffee, the strongest coffee. So we would always hit truck stops whenever we could. And they even gauged it by 300-mile coffee. That's what they would brag that we could do it, whatever. Yeah, it's funny to think about no energy drinks. I remember the first one I ever saw was Jolt Cola, and the advertisement was all the sugar and twice the caffeine. And from that point, Red Bull, the whole thing comes through. And I was just looking up at those trumpeter swans. Sorry about that last tape. I'm still experimenting. I got a microphone right here, so hopefully you can hear me good. Yeah, that last one I did, I just did it. I saw those things flying overhead, and I thought, I might as well share the story. What's going on with you, lady? I don't know if you can see her. Come here. But can you see? That's lady's house back there. I'll walk back and show her. Come here, lady. Come here. Anyway, that's where lady sleeps, and I'll turn around and show you where the guineas sleep too. Hope they're quiet. I don't have my hearing aids in, so I don't know if they're making noise or not. Are you guys okay? Buckley? So with that, I got a request to tell about the big flood of 1990, 27 years ago this week. We had 2 100-year floods within 2 weeks' time. And I have never worked that hard in my life. We sandbagged one day for 14 hours straight. Kept the water back. I'll see if I can get pictures and all that stuff and everything. And with that, I'll be back. I'm going to take the microphone and clamp it right here. And then I'll take the camera and show you where the guineas sleep. Hey, buckwheat. Hey, guys. There's our little shack. They got a little mirror right there. Oops. And a roof over their heads. And I'm going to put side racks on there, I think, just to keep it a little bit better. They sleep right out there at the bottom in the straw. Look at them guys. You know what I like about them? And geese. They're monogamous. They they mate for life. And the same with the geese. Kind of rare these days, but they do. And they're pretty cool. Yeah, I had to put this fence in just because I don't know if you can even see it. They just wouldn't leave lady alone. So with that, let's see what I can do here. Trying to turn the camera back so you can see me, and I can see. Anyway, I hope it shows. I'm just guessing that you can see my face. So I'll be back, and take care. Thanks.